Cindy Jacobson, Quincy Rose, Nancy Center, Ansel Sloan, Shruga Stern, and Louis Tartar. Are there any other people who you want to send blessings of healing to? Please either say their name or write it in the chat.
Beth Hershenson.
Ira Pemstein. Sam Minchus. Barry Haworth.
We say Baruch atah Adonai Rofei Chalim. Praise to you, God, who gives healing strength and shares it with those who need it. So we also will start with the blessing for Torah study, as you know, soak into words of Torah together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu v'nishpatar banu la'asok Torah. Oh, we should soak into these words of Torah. It's an interesting Torah portion. It's matot maseh, a double portion. If you have the Plout, which it says on the cover, Plout Modern Commentary, we're all looking at Numbers 30, verse 4, but it's page 1100, as it says on this paper I put up. If you're in the Women's Torah Commentary, that's Ashkenazi, page 992 is where we start. Eitz Chaim, page 941. Other people with any kind of Torah, we're really going to start with Numbers 30, verse 4. And um, we're looking at a number of things, but primarily what I'd like to look at in this Torah portion are vows and what vows mean and how the text highlights first the householder or the man's vow and then the woman's vow and how it responds to what stages of life she's in and the question of her being a dependent or independent person. Um, so who has Eitz Chaim?
I do. Herman.
Great. Would you start reading there on the top of 941 so we can see where the Torah portion starts, and then we'll listen to some of the commentary.
Moses spoke to the heads of the Israelite tribes, saying, "This is what the Lord has commanded. If a man makes a vow to the Lord or takes an oath imposing an obligation on himself, he shall not break his pledge. He must carry out all that has crossed his lips."
Okay, who's in charge of what he says?
He is.
He is. And that is the framework that the male head of household is the one who has control over his words and what the impact and what the responsibility is. If we go down, let's read a little further. Let's go then, if you would, to the next page.
If a woman makes a vow to the Lord or assumes an obligation while still in her father's household by reason of her youth, and her father learns of her vow or her self-imposed obligation and offers no objection, all her vows shall stand, and every self-imposed obligation shall stand also. But if her father restrains her on the day he finds out, none of her vows or self-imposed obligations shall stand, and the Lord will forgive her, since her father restrained her.
So, what kind of vows might she make that her father would restrain? Some of you are fathers and may have had daughters.
I got two sons.
Okay. And then, you know, Even if you have sons, I imagine there were times when you stepped in. What kind of circumstance does a parent step into a vow an under 18 age person makes, for example, sukasa?
Obviously not to lay with a man, to have sex, that she should be pure, she should be obedient, she should be, those kinds of things.
Anything else? Thank you.
Are we referring to a vow a father would restrain or not restrain?
To a one that he would restrain.
Oh, I was thinking more along lines if a father saw something happening to a daughter where she needed some sort of protection, but that is not restraint.
Oh, that he would step in if he thinks that she needs some
Right.
protection. I'm going to stop the share so I can see you. Everybody have the pages you need? Um, he would step in to protect her. Now, this also might be, particularly in this age, he might step in to protect her if she is taking an idol and worshiping it like other people around. If she's going to follow a false god, he's going to step in. If, as Sue said, there's a sexual impropriety, he's going to step in. If she's spending his money in a way that he doesn't like, I'm sure he's going to step in.
Rabbi, supposing the woman falls in love with a man who is not accepted by the father.
Then he steps in. This is what this case says. And it doesn't have an age clause. Do you notice? It doesn't say when she's 18, it's different. When she's 21, it's different. It just says that the father can step in. However, some of this changes when she marries. So let's continue with this text. And Brad, if you'd keep reading let's see, verse 7. But oh, 1 second. I also find it interesting that her father restrains her, and then none of the vows stand. And the Lord forgives her. God says, I forgive you, honey. You didn't know what you were doing. Your daddy will take care of you, right? So there is here, God is very compassionate and understanding that a father would be in this protective role. Now, let's look at verse 7. Brad, can you continue?
Yeah. If she should marry while her vow or the commitment to which she bound herself is still in force, and her husband learns of it and offers no objection on the day he finds out, her vow shall stand and her self-imposed obligation shall stand. But if her husband restrains her on the day that he learns of it, he thereby annuls her vow, which was in force, or the commitment to which she bound herself, and the Lord will forgive her.
So let's stop there.
May I ask you a question, first of all, Rabbi?
Sure.
It has to do with vows. Many years ago, and I'm not going to go into the whole story, it's not necessary, but many years ago, I made a vow to God. I vowed to God I would not do something if God would do something for me. In my own mind, it worked. And I have never done that since. And I'm talking about almost 50 years now. But I have kept this vow. No one knows about it except me. The vow still stands, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't dare break a vow to God.
On Yom Kippur, when we make vows to God, we're not talking about it with anybody else. It's between us and God, us and our conscience, us and our inner reflective capacity. And there are many things that people may keep a vow regarding that you don't need to share because it really has to do with you in your understanding of yourself and relationship to God and a moral sense. Thank you. But here, so she comes into marriage with a vow. If her husband agrees with it, cool, it stands. If her husband doesn't agree with the vow she previously made, he annuls it. So, what if she has what if she has debt to a house she bought under her father's responsibility? Does he annul that? Thoughts?
He could annul it.
Say it again, please.
He could annul it. Doesn't say he couldn't.
So the husband takes priority over the previous vow that the father went along with. But the
We say
truth
annul,
is,
but what do we mean by the word annul?
What?
meaning that he can say that vow does not hold.
What gives him that right?
If she had committed to worshiping another god and her father was fine with that, and her husband says no.
Mhm.
If she had said, I'm going to marry two husbands, and this husband that she's married to could say, no, that doesn't work. If she had other kind of vows that were not within the cultural framework or religious laws, she could the new husband can come in and say, you can't hold that while you are my wife. So he has power over her vow and words. So I see somebody's hand here. It says iPad.
It's
Ah,
Marina.
hi, Marina.
Hi, I don't know why it doesn't recognize my name. So it's um, when we say wow, and
Wow.
you mention some money obligations like a loan. Isn't a vow a spiritual commitment, or maybe a promise, like we saw, not to cut hair or not to eat or meat, or to complete so many uh, mm, uh, good deeds in honor of something? Isn't a vow something more spiritual than a loan?
No, the term is the same. Neder means responsibility, a vow that you have. It can be a spiritual one or it can be a concrete, physical, economic, property, legal vow. And so that holds in those ways. Um, but good question. Thank you. Let's go on now because it's going to shift. And let's read one more section from here, and then we're going to go to the Women's Torah commentary. Brad, would you read their verse 10?
The vow of a widow or of a divorced woman, however, whatever she has imposed on herself, shall be binding upon her.
Okay, stop. Why do you think this is in here? And what does it say about the woman?
First of all, it says she doesn't have too many rights.
Yes. After she's a widow, or if she's divorced, she stands as a full citizen in the community and can make the same kind of vow as an independent male makes. Um, and um, it's an interesting addition. I want to go now to
How does that square with the next sentence, which says, wait a minute, I lost it. What, and if in her husband's household she makes a vow or imposes an obligation on herself by oath, how come that one stands and the other ones her husband can annul?
Because keep reading the sentence.
Oh,
You have to include the sentence.
oh, and her husband learns of it, yet offers no objection. Okay, okay. Thus failing to restrain her, all vows shall stand, and all her self-imposed obligations shall stand. Okay, thank you.
So if they agree, they agree. But read that next section here, verse 13 continues to, if you would.
But if her husband does annul them on the day he finds out, then nothing that has crossed her lips shall stand, whether vows or self-imposed obligations. Wow.
So how much time does he have?
One day?
It's when he finds out, right? Immediately, really. Once he finds out, he's got to do something, or the vow stands. Now, Harv and Mara, I see a hand.
I look at this whole chapter that we're 30, and from the very this is all about men. It's really not about women, because if you look at um, s- starting with verse 4, consistently we see the word and. So this whole chapter is starts out with when a man voweth a vow, and then every other verse we see is and. So this isn't about women at all. It's completely about men.
So it's for some of you are lawyers. It's like a section. We're going to talk about vows. Most of them are held by men. And here's the clauses that differ. And. Good. Yes. It's about men's vows because men held full citizenship in society. And they're saying, okay, where's the exception? Can we find an exception where a woman might be able to stand on her own feet, socially, religiously, economically? And in this type of system, it appears only if she's divorced or only if she is a widow. Does she have that same, uh, what do you want to say, priority or status as the male socially and economically in society? And there is an interesting comment um, that puts it in context in some ways. Um, Brad, I'm going to go back to you if you would, because the Eitz Chaim has a comment at the bottom of page 942, which explains these rules. It's comment number 5
Okay.
below
But
that
yeah,
little,
before I read that, Rabbi, I've been thinking, I mean, this divorced woman or widow could have a living father, but the agency doesn't go back to the father, it remains with the woman, interestingly.
which is pretty remarkable in terms of ancient society. That there are few cultures in which the woman has the status of a man in terms of social, economic, and legal. And if she is, not that you want to be divorced or widowed, but that is where she has agency. And that's an interesting thing that it does not revert to the father
Or brother
or brother.
of the husband. Mhm.
But in some cases, the brother could have certain rights, and often that appears in inheritance.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, so I'll read. These rules, reflecting an age when women were subordinated to a father or a husband, have been superseded by developments in the modern world. Already by the time of the Talmud, the sages limited the applicability of this law by restricting its time, the year between ages 11 and 12, and circumstances. The sense here of the married woman as subservient in the early period of our tradition, however, seems unavoidable.
Yeah. So they're very candid. And it is talking about the imbalance. But now, if we go to the Women's Torah commentary, somebody with Women's Torah commentary, page 993. Who has Women's Torah commentary? Cindy. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
There's page 993, the first comment, if a woman makes a vow. So
Hey,
this is going to
But
explore.
if a woman makes a vow, the Bible does not limit the kind of property that can be vowed, and it mentions several women who make vows. We deduce from such sources that vows included a wide variety of promised offerings. For example, Hannah vows to dedicate to the sanctuary the son whom she hopes to bear, Samuel 1. Women can dedicate themselves as Nazarites, number 6. And in Proverbs 7, a married woman reports that she has fulfilled her vow by making a payment. The nature of Proverbs as wisdom literature makes it difficult to assess its value as reflecting ancient practices. Jacques Berlin-Blau argues that the polemical purpose of the story in Proverbs is to warn men against seductive women, which makes the text an unreliable source for the lives of real women. Nevertheless, the story suggests that readers are expected to find it credible that a married woman can make independent vows.
So it is interesting and sort of they want to document it in terms of historical or semi-historical women that we know of. Certainly, Hannah is the mother of Samuel, and she said, we're going to dedicate him so he should be a Kohen and be a priest at the temple. And she did. And that's a major religious commitment. Fern, I see your hand.
I have a question. You know, we're looking at this and saying that this is what remarkable in the ancient world, etc. But are the current, isn't the current orthodoxy following this, whatever this ancient stuff says?
Well, that's an interesting question. So, yes and no. In other words, and I'm going to say that modern Orthodox would be quite different than Haredi, the observant, Polish-centered, isolated communities that live in Brooklyn and parts of Ramat Gan in Israel and maybe the West Bank. And they would have much more, wanting to have much more control. But over time, there have been different changes in terms of halakha that women have more agency. However, it also is dependent on another law that the rabbis made in the 12th or 13th century. Dina de Malchuta Dina, the law of the land is the law as it relates to property, economics, um, uh, responsibility for vows, meaning anything concrete. Could a father enter a relationship that um, a young woman is having with a non-Jewish boy? Probably. Um, or girl, probably. I think those kind of issues certainly uh, modern Orthodox might step in as well, not all. In terms of responsibilities and economic responsibilities, it depends on when and where. And that's really quite a debate in Israel because the Supreme Court in Israel is a secular Supreme Court. And that is separate from the rabbinic law that tries to maintain halakha as the law. So that's quite an interesting thing and a problem right now, given that Netanyahu has bent so backwards to the Orthodox secular Jews in Israel and modern Orthodox, for example, are saying every person should serve Israel in some way, in the military or in social service. And the right-wing Haredim say no. So everybody else sends their kids to the army, and they don't. And that creates a lot of social stress, as you can imagine. So that's a good question. We're still dealing with it. Thanks, Fern. Let's keep going because I think the text will go further. Now, this says something that, the father could still, when the child is 12 to 13, they can enter the vow. But if a child is over 13, well, in some circles, she already might be married, and therefore the 14 or 15-year-old husband has the status. But it's an interesting thing. Go to the middle of that page, Cindy.
Yeah.
993, while still in her father's household, and they'll explore it more.
While still in her father's household. That is, she is unmarried and most likely does not own property. By implication, anything she offers as a pledge belongs to the household, not to her, including a measure of control of her sexuality. A father typically sets the terms of his daughter's marriage, including the required bridal gift, and he may subject her to debt slavery. This verse shows that a vow is not contingent on a person's legal right to own property. A woman, even one who is young and unmarried, can still utter binding vows and oaths. She does not require her father's consent. However, he has the option of annulling the vow under certain conditions. This law affirms a woman's practice. In addition, there may be a practical economic consideration. The priestly authors of this text or their descendants most likely would benefit from additional sanctuary dedications collected from women's vows.
And here they're talking about spiritual vows. I commit to this and I'll give tzedakah on behalf of I did a wrong and I want to write it. I want to say I'm going to give something in honor or to obviate or to offer as a forgiveness for what I did wrong. And so at that point, and in her youth, she can. We'll go to page 994 in the Women's Torah, which is verse 30:10. Eric, I see your hand.
I'm okay. It sounds like a spendthrift trust to me, because you know what I mean by spendthrift trust. They want to protect the innocent person from being scammed, so they have to ask a trustee to okay the expenditure before they write the check. For instance, let's say like a spendthrift because I have autism and maybe food. So if I want something of value to buy, the trustees have to okay it. I don't have long-term care, so I have to preserve my assets for my care. That sounds exactly like maybe a spendthrift trust, so to protect the grantor from undue influence by others.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So in this society then, they're saying the widow or the divorce has some status independently. Let's look at the Women's Torah commentary, page 994. Anybody else have Women's Torah commentary? Otherwise, Cindy, you're on.
Okay. The vow of a widow or of a divorced woman, however, whatever she has imposed on herself shall be binding upon her. So too, if while in her husband's household, she makes a vow or imposes an obligation on herself by oath, and her husband learns of it, yet offers no objection, thus failing to restrain her, all her vows shall stand, and all her self-imposed obligations shall stand.
Jump to verse 16.
But if he annuls them after the day he finds out, he shall bear her guilt.
So if she spent her credit card to the max, and the dad then annuls her ability to use the credit card, he's responsible for the economic loss.
That's a
Okay.
that's a spendthrift. Excuse me. That's a spendthrift trust I was talking about.
Right.
Because I'm okay with routine matters, but I'm I just get hounded by people for money, and I may lose the judgment. So the trustees of my account can protect me from creditors and all that stuff. And I
Very
thank you.
good. Thank you.
Huh?
I want to keep moving, Eric, okay? Because,
I'm sorry,
all
but
right, thank you. Let's discuss this a little. I see other hands up. I see Rebecca and then I see Fern.
At this point in time in our history, did men still have multiple wives, or they had one primary wife and then had relations with the
Potentially, yes. Yes, the annulment against polygamy is in the 14th century, Rabbeinu Gershom. And that was accepted by the Ashkenazic community and not the Sephardic and Middle Eastern. But they may have more than one wife. Why do you ask?
well, then would these vows then apply to men that had multiple wives? Because it's talking in the singular right here.
There is. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Fern, I see your hand.
Just briefly, I just keep thinking about how this applies now, versus what's in there. And it's kind of the corollary or maybe almost the opposite or to the divorce, breaking of marriage vows, that women cannot get a divorce without the permission of the husband. The vow can only be broken by the husband. And it's a very serious problem, not just in Israel, but all over the world for Jews and for men who are holding women hostage to their marriages. And they don't seem to be able to annul, to give power to women in any way. Disregard these very ancient rules is not something that they've really satisfactorily figured out how to do.
And that's a good point. The holding of in a sense, the ketubah before the marriage license before they issue a get, a divorce decree that is held in the Orthodox community primarily, and many women, many Orthodox women as well, have protested against this in terms of allowing a woman to divorce even without a get and allowing the court to issue the get if it is an obstinate husband. Sukasa, I see your hand. Thank you.
I want to go tag on to what Fern said. If a man violates the ketubah in an Orthodox marriage, can the woman then say, you have to give me a get because the man violated the ketubah?
Meaning that he had an affair, right? Or say he spent their family money. She could take it to a Beit Din. They would have to investigate. Her power base is pretty small. But
At least
you
it
know,
would give
it
her
is
the right
not
to go to the Beit Din. She
The
could
Beit
go
Din
to the Beit.
is illusory in most cases. Women wait 7 years, 10 years, a lifetime, and they don't get any satisfaction to the court who says, go back and go talk to your husband. And the fact is that it's used also as blackmail in a lot of
Yes.
current cases where men say, you want a divorce, this is what you have to pay me, or this is what I get out of paying you, or I'll take the children and you don't. I mean, it's a very severe
It's a
problem all over
very,
the world.
thank you. It's a very, very difficult situation. It is biased towards the man. That's the society and the Orthodox community. That was part of the changes that the Reform movement made in the 18th and 19th century, and recognizing that women could be part of the community, both socially and economically and religiously, and have gone to the place of this other phrase, Dina de Malhuta Dina, the law of the land is the law. So in the United States, the law regarding marriage and divorce holds if somebody wants a get, many times they'll go through the divorce and the court will order the man to release a get. And if not, there are financial implications for him. And I've seen it in a number of cases here in Los Angeles. And
Rabbi, the courts, I'm a divorce lawyer. The
Uh,
courts may include a requirement, but there's no way of enforcing it because it's an infringement on First Amendment rights. So it really,
it's hostage.
it's hostage.
It's really hostage. So the good thing is some people can choose where they want to be in the Jewish community and where they want to marry and divorce. But what we're reading is something that's in ancient texts to understand the power of the vow, that this vow had a tremendous power that was a commitment that the person made. And I'd like to go to Tamara Ashkenazi's essay. And some of you who have the Women's Torah commentary can see it. But one of the things that she talks about is that there are many famous stories about women in the Bible who who make vows. And there's the story in Judges where Yephthah vows to sacrifice a burnt offering um, if to the first thing that comes out of his house, and that would be an offering to God. His daughter comes out and dances after his victory, and his rash vow causes his daughter to die. And she says, I want to just, cry over my life. And it became a tradition for women to gather together to remember Yafet's daughter. Um, she was a faithful woman whose father's impulsive vow really literally killed her. There are other vows that we know within the Torah in terms of King Saul takes a vow that whoever eats or drinks during a battle will be put to death. and his son Jonathan drinks something and eats something, and Saul commands that Jonathan be executed, and Jonathan says, I'm ready to die. But somehow God heard his plea, and the troops actually heard his plea, and they saved Jonathan and ransomed him. So there are different ways that in our tradition that we see that people make vows. Um, and today I wonder if do women still hesitate to make vows that affect their primary relationship in society? Do men hesitate to make vows, social, economic, religious, that impact their primary relationship? And how does one negotiate that? Are you committed to the vow? If you each vow things and see things differently, how do you negotiate this difference?
Well, if you get married, in California, for example, the state imposes a bunch of vows on you, if you will, that marriage, a legal civil marriage, is a contract. It's a prenup, if you will, that's
Yep.
imposed by the state that says the things that you vow. And whether you like it or not, those vows will be imposed upon you.
And they hold economic as well
Yes.
as social responsibility.
So, for example, debts. When you get married, you become your earnings, your joint earnings will become subject to creditors, and that of your spouse as well.
So the concept of vows are taken seriously in legal society in many places. Although today in our world, many people make vows that are just flowing out of their mouth. I'd like to go to the end of this Torah portion, which is a double, and that is Numbers 36:10. And let's see. Somebody else. This is the daughters of Zelophehad. Does anybody have a different you'd like to read? Does anybody have the Plout? Or another Torah? Just grab it and let's read. Rebecca or Diane? Verse
Dan, do you want me
10.
to read? The daughters of Zelophehad did as the Eternal had commanded Moses. Mahlah, Zerah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah, Zelophehad's daughters, were married to sons of their uncles, marrying into clans of descendants of Manasseh, son of Joseph, and so their share remained in the tribe of their father's clan.
So what is interesting is they are part of the family names. Let's look at the Women's Torah commentary there, verse 11.
Which section do you want?
I'm on verse 11, page 20, verse 1028, page 1028, 1027 and 28.
Okay. The sisters' names appear for the first time in this parsha, whereas the speakers thus far, the relatives and Moses, refer to the five sisters as the Zelophehad's daughters. The narrator now calls them by their names. The sisters' own names appear in all 3 episodes about them. The order here, however, differs from that of Numbers 27 and Joshua 17, and there is no obvious explanation for the sequence. On the names and their connection to place, see 27.
Okay, let's turn the page and 1028. So it's a funny phrase here. They were married to the sons of their uncles, meaning they were married to their cousins.
You want me to read that whole thing?
Yeah, that first paragraph on page 1028 below
Although they can marry any man from the very large tribe of
Manasseh.
Read this one. Manasseh, the sisters choose their cousins. There is no reason to suppose that the land was transferred to the husbands once the women married. The Bible does not prohibit wives from owning property.
So let's just stop there. What is an interesting theory is that women can inherit, and they can inherit property when there is no male son. There's no male descendant. And so in this case, this is one of the first times we acknowledge that women inherit property. And it's even, a contract where this is used as a base for other Jewish law going forward. And it's an interesting thing. It's pretty ancient and it's pretty honored. And, is this a question in the Orthodox women? Can Orthodox women own property? Yes. But it's by inheritance. And that is an interesting part. What we read here, and I want to conscious the time, in the ancient world, this kind of vow became quite significant. And the question is, when did women have a voice? And it may be only in certain circumstances, and that may be true today within Israeli society as well. But we're hoping that in the future, both men and women and all people can have a voice in their direction of their life, in the relationships they choose, and in the economic decisions they make in terms of agency. If a person is disabled, they would need some kind of conservator, but that's different than an independent of age woman being seen as a member of society who has the same socioeconomic and spiritual status as the men. So any last thoughts? And then we're going to go to Kaddish. And first of all, I want to thank you all. I have really enjoyed doing Torah study, Chevra Torah, since Rabbi Stanley Davids got sick, and kind of brought me back to doing things I did at Wilshire Boulevard Temple quite a long time. And I love it.
Do you have a live connection with us, Rabbi?
My husband and I are moving to New York within a month, at the end of the month. And so we're there because our kids are in New York and in Vienna, Austria, and we're going to stop slipping around, as it were.
You will be missed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, you'll be missed.
Thank you for your guidance, Rabbi. Can we please say the prayer at the end of the book? We have read to
We
the
have
end of
finished the book of Numbers, Chazak, Chazak, Vanit Chazek. May we be strong, and may we strengthen each other. We ask that people who are hostages be redeemed. We ask those who are remembering people that they love, hold on to those memories with full hearts. And these are the names of those who are experiencing a yard site. Please rise when you can. These are those who are on the Kaddish list. Today, those who passed away during this Shloshim, during this last month of Ibrahim Goel, Samantha Cutler Green, Ann Gross, Janet Corzani, Jacqueline Lewis Moss, Jack Myers, Mosaka Rosen, Julie Caroline Weintraub, and Arlene Young. We also recall those who've died in the line of duty, both here and in Israel. These are the yard sites that have occurred during this past week. Lillian Aber, Marianne Barbanel, Virgil Byler, Jeanette Bell, Sanford Berkeley, Florence Burns, Howard Bezris, Harry Bodek, Manuel Borenstein, Samia Brennan, Howard Brown, Ernst Baruch, Marguerite Wallstetter Bruch, Lillian Cook, Eli Ellison, Ralph Feinstein, Randy Feinstein, Freda Fox, Marvin Frankel, Edwin Frischling, Lawrence Judah Genender, Art Ginsberg, Adam Gittleson, Hillard Walter Gordon, Ita Gordon, Bernard Gottlieb, Cynthia Gottlieb, Lillian Gottschalk, Calvin David Green, Edward Greer, Leona Harris, Jacob Hecht, Ronald Heft, Ethel Henningsen, Jerry Hodis, Beverly Cooper Howard, Ruth Jacobs, Miguel Cahan, Melinda Lee Case, Simon Max Kaplan, Ray Kaufman, Sally Kirshner, Diana Klein, Esther Klein, Jim Cusick, Harry Krakoff, Theodore Kraut, Ruth Levine, Joyce Lenise, Emery Lefkowitz, Evan Mackey, Marilyn Malkin, Paul Mandel, Horace Mann, Joseph Meshnick, Judy Michaels, Arthur Moore, Aubrey Morris, Milton Nadich, Estelle Newman, Michael Ormiston, Jenny Pacholski, Susan Peterson, Jack Pierce, Dennis Rainey, Sarah Rev, Dean Harrison Rolston, David Rosenberg, Judith Harriet Rosenfeld, Charlotte Ross, Edward Ross, Edward Meredith Rothman, Nene Segehi, Nanena Segehi, Musa Saidfar, Roy Shapira, Paul Schneider, Mark Schulman, Walter David Schwartz, Leonard Schwimmer, Gussie Cebulski, Jaime Scher, Joseph Sinakayo, Carolyn Sklar, Muriel Solomon, Jacob Steineman, Dorothy Tommen, Isaac Torbati, Vincent Virzi, Gail Weiner, Gabriel Weiss, Irene Grace White, Rabbi Alfred Wolf, and Miriam Wolf. Are there any additional names to add today? We rise for Kaddish. Yitgadal,
Yitkadash
V'yitgadal, Me
me,
Rabbah, V'yalma
V'yaman
Tibrachute,
Divrachute,
V'yamlich Malchute,
V'yamich Malchute,
V'chayachon, V'yomechon, V'chayet,
V'chayet
V'chol
Kol
Beit
Beit
Yisrael,
Yisrael.
V'agamal B'zman Karim V'imru. Amen. Yehesh
Yesh me Rabba Mevarach Leolam,
Obey Omaya. Yitbarach, Yishtabach,
Yishtabar, Yisrael,
Yipar, Vitromam, Vitnase,
V'yitnase,
Vietadar,
V'yitadar, V'yitale,
Vitalai,
V'yital,
Vitlishim,
Made
Vidkusha,
Kudusha Brichu,
Brichu, Ve'elach,
Ve'elam Min
Shechata,
Kol
Shechata,
Berchacha,
Vishchata, Vinechemata, Amiran Bialma Vimru, Amen. Shlomo Rabba, Min Shemayim,
Shemayim,
Chaim Aleinu,
Aleinu
Yalkut
Yarchu
Yisrael,
Yisrael,
Amen.
V'imru, Amen.
Says Shalom B'Ramav, Booyah says Shalom, Aleinu Yalkut Yisrael, Vimru,
Kol
Amen.
Yisrael, V'imru,
May the
Amen.
one who creates peace on high bring peace into our world, into our homes, and into our hearts. And together we say, Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
We're
Thank you
really
so
gonna
much.
miss you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sei gesund,
For sure.
be well. Study Torah.
We will.
Find us a good substitute.
Trying.
You are unique.
Just do it with the time difference. It'll be great.
Lots of love, everyone. Take
You
care.
too.
Same here.